All right, hello, and thank you for joining us for this week's episode of the Marketing Guides for Small Business podcast. I'm Paul, and joined by Ken and Ian. And today we're going to talk about local landing pages. They're important for local rankings, and the more competitive the market is, the more important they are. So, Ken, start with you. Sometimes they're called local landing pages. Sometimes they're called local service area pages. What are they, and why are they important?
Yeah, so basically, these are pages that they've been around for a long time, and chances are, if you have some on your website that you did a long time ago, they're bad, and they may not be hurting you, but they're being ignored. These pages tell the internet, Google search engines, key profiles, where you deliver your services. And so it's really important to make sure that you have these on your website. As you mentioned, if you're in a competitive space, you need to make sure you have content on your website that talks about a location that's really important to your business. Could be an area you serve. It could be an area where your clients are going to come from that location to your place of business. It doesn't have to just be for what we call a service area business where that business goes to the customer. It could be, the customers that you serve who come to your place of business, but from those, communities or neighborhoods. And so you need to also have some awareness of, what is defined as an area, a local area. In some cases, if you're in a big metropolitan area, it may be a neighborhood. Certainly suburbs, counties depend, you just have to be smart about it, and you have to look and you have to rely on the data to tell you what's happening from the competition and how are you ranking for different things.
Yeah, these local service pages, they don't get any respect.
So let me just add this too. So, here's the problem that businesses that did this 5 years ago or more, or maybe even 2 years ago or more, actually, it's still happening, unfortunately, because there are a lot of ignorant internet marketers that are out there that don't have a clue, and they're lazy. So what they do is they create one of these pages and then they copy it, and all they do is do a find and replace of the city or the location, and they publish a dozen of these on somebody's website. uh, Google wants to see 70% unique content on each and every page. If it doesn't see that, it's gonna ignore it. The search engines are now looking for helpful content, and if your content on your website is not deemed as being helpful, it's going to ignore that content. And so you may think you're sitting pretty having dozens of these pages in some cases on your website. Um, they're not doing anything for you. And I do feel like there may be a little bit of a penalty because it does erode the confidence of the search engine about all of the content on your website, because you have inappropriate search type content, not inappropriate in any other way, but it's inappropriate in the eyes of what Google says is important now.
Yeah, there's a lot of mixed signals out there around that, and I think part of that is because Google doesn't always apply their policies uniformly. It's one business will get penalized for something, and another business won't for the same thing. So, Ian, these pages they come in four basic types. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, they're like Smarties or M&Ms. They come in multiple shades. The four basic types are location detail pages, and I'll describe what these are in a second. But the four are location detail pages, location service or department pages, city pages, or state province pages. But I'll go into detail a little bit about what these are. So a location detail page really provides specific information about a particular business location, including their address, contact details, unique features about the business, And of course, you try to tie those into the exact services that you have in that area, right? Because not every business has all the same services or products in the same area. So you want to make sure you customize it that way. As Ken said, you want to make sure that you're not doing a lot of duplicate content here. It's unique. It's valuable to people that come across it, right? We always talk about that from an SEO standpoint, that do not create content for content's sake. Create it for the two audiences, which are the people and the robots, right? The search engines. The other thing that type of page, the detail page, location detail page, also does is it helps local SEO because it provides an accurate, consistent information for the search engines and the users, right? They're in that area, they're looking for your particular product and service, and it helps you come up. The next one is a location, service, or department page, and that's really focused on a specific service, or it could be a department or a division of your business, but usually it's specifically related to the service you're offering at that particular location. And this improves SEO for sure by targeting relevant keywords related to that particular service. So it's very helpful to you. What you're doing essentially is tying the service with the location, and that presents nice signals to Google and other search engines. And then some other ones I mentioned are more kind of the regional pages, the city page, the state province page. And these are really, dedicated to specifically to the city and your relevance within that city, or your state or province, and your relevance there as well. So it's trying to create signals for Google as well as people within those areas that you are a relevant search result specifically to those areas.
Yeah, there's and these can be combined as well. You kind of need to find out what works best for you, for your particular situation. You don't need to have all four of these pages on your website for each service or area. As a matter of fact, you actually shouldn't. But that's another topic.
Just to elaborate a little on what you just said there, Paul, usually, I think you guys do things similarly, right? We've got a very strategic way of doing this, and you guys do as well, and we follow similar philosophies. But really, the table stake location pages are the location service pages, right? If you're a service-based business, you absolutely have to be creating those location service pages, or you're not giving Google enough signals to send you traffic.
Yep.
Correct. I agree with that. So, I do. Very agreeable today. So, Ken, you touch on this a little bit. Maybe go into a little deeper, but why do these pages matter for SEO? What are the different things they can help with?
Yeah. So these pages really are all about helping your business be found when somebody types in product or service plus a location, right? Or plus near me. So, chiropractor near me, dentist near me, dentist Bradford, dentist St. Charles, whatever it might be. That's where these pages really help to prop you up. And so they're in my mind, they're absolutely critical for SEO. And again, they shouldn't just be copy, paste, repeat, swap out the location or the service and the location, but everything else is the same. That's just not going to do you any good. Honestly, these pages are rarely visited. You're probably not going to put these on your main navigation. These are really supporting pages. They can be a gateway into your website because they may show up in that top search result. But they may very rarely be visited. That doesn't mean you want to ignore them and you don't want to create them. They're important for brand queries. They're important for when somebody is doing a search for, like I said, a plumber near me or whatnot. You want to incorporate links, and if you can get local links to these pages, that's fantastic. I know, Paul, you and we have a strategy to build links and generate signals using press releases. That's a really awesome way. And I think, the other thing is that most people don't realize is if you look at what Google tells us about ranking your Google business profile, it has three things: relevance, prominence, and proximity. So proximity, look, if you're in a neighborhood or a suburb that isn't close to the real ideal area that you want to serve, you're kind of screwed, right? Because Google's going to use your physical location and it's going to use your build prominence around that. The way you start to overcome that is through the relevance concept. The relevant now, and prominence is all about reviews, so they're critically important as well. But in terms of local, I want to focus on relevance. So when you have your Google business profile, if it's set up properly, you specify your service area, service areas. You should have content that reinforces that on your website that says, yeah, I actually do work in these areas, and here are the services or the products that I offer here. And then you need to interconnect those. And relevance is really all about the entire rest of the web figuring out, this business does these products or delivers these services in these locations. And so you need to send signals across the entire web. And these location pages are critical to tell the entire web, especially your website, especially your Google business profile, but all of the rest of the web. Here's where I work, and here's what I do.
All right, so that kind of feeds into what I was going to ask Ian, because how do these location pages affect local pack rankings, which is it's a subset of SEO is how I look at it. But so what are local pack rankings, and how do location pages help affect that or help with that?
Sure. So the local pack is really what we look at when we're looking at map listings. But just to reiterate, when you do a local search, and Ken names one of the top searches for almost any business, and that's something near me, right? So plumber near me, marketer near me, mechanic near me. Those are absolutely huge searches that you want to make sure that you're ranking top for and not your competition, right? So the local pack, or when they do that search, just to finish that thought, is you do a Google search, you get your ads at the top, you get your map listings, which are really the local pack, and usually it's a 3-pack. Sometimes there's a fourth one, which is an ad that's shown in there as well. Another thing that is very common, depending on what industry you're in, is even above all that, you now have local service ads, which is entirely different and very confusing to a lot of businesses. But that's relevant, especially if you have a service that can be listed in those, because that's an additional local type of advertising you can do. Then you have the organic listings below that, and then ads again. So, but the map listings are really, really vital, because that gives people, first of all, Ken talked about proximity, right? So the way Google does that is basically wherever your business is located, the closer you are to the person searching, the better the chance that you'll show up at the top of those listings, assuming all things are equal between you and your competition, right? Because proximity doesn't trump everything else, so you still need to make sure all the other pieces are relevant as well. But you can optimize those location pages to improve your chances of appearing in that local pack. You can increase your visibility. You can generate more organic traffic. Structuring your location page with proper NAP information, name, address, and phone number is really, really vital, because that's one of the key connectors that Google uses to make sure that, okay, not only is this the same business, but there are no errors or no deviations from what they know about where you guys are located. Because that's a common problem, that businesses move, they change their phone number, they change their location, whatever it is, and that information isn't updated, and that reduces the perceived quality and relevance of that business. I don't even think, I think there was another question kind of hidden in there about Google, just when we were setting this up, was Google Business Profiles. That is your key signal maker for all of this information, right? So you need to make sure that you're optimizing that. And I know Ken touched on that, but that's super relevant for showing up in the local pack for sure.
Yeah, the local pack, Google Maps, your Google Business Profile, they're I don't want to say they're the same thing, but they're all interconnected. They one doesn't exist without the other.
Yeah. Well, and it's important to note that 60 to 70% of all clicks or phone calls happen from the Google Map results, those pack results. 60 to 70%. People, 10 to 20% are going to click on the ads, but people recognize that they're ads. And when you're looking at a search results page, you have to scroll down below the fold, meaning you actually have to physically scroll to see the organic listings most of the time. So these near me or location-based searches, if that pertains to your business, if you serve it, in a local service area, it's absolutely critical. So, but it's not, I think a lot of people think, oh, well, I can just do my Google Business Profile and optimize that and I'm good. And it's like, no. You have to have supporting cast of characters to help prop that up. Plus you don't own it. So, you gotta keep that in mind.
So Ken, what should be included on an optimized location page? Obviously there's certain elements that should be there.
Yeah. So, Ian mentioned name, address, phone number information. That's really important. That helps to establish, the location. You want to reinforce that with structured data. So you want to make sure that the name, address, phone number information, the area that you serve, this, all of that kind of stuff is included in your structured data for each and every one of those pages. You need to write all of your metadata properly. So the title tags of the pages, the meta descriptions, just doing good, proper on-page SEO, and there are, 8 to 10 things that, are low-hanging fruit that you need to do on every one of those pages. Well, you need to do that on these location pages as well. You need to make sure you're not cannibalizing your keywords though when you're doing this. So you have to be careful, and you have to, so that this is where you have to plan and map all of this out. And when I say cannibalizing your keywords, you don't want to try and get 2 different pages wind up ranking for the same phrase. Now you're competing against yourself. Instead, you want reinforcing content. So, fairly similar supportive keyword phrases propping up another page, having proper linking from one page to the next within your website is really important. So you want to do that with what we call anchor text as appropriate. And you want to include like local points of interest, maybe even a map embed. If you're trying to get a page to rank for, St. Charles, which is a major suburb of the St. Louis metro area where I'm at, maybe you have a Google map embed of, St. Charles. And we're in city or county. So you'd have to figure out, do I want to do it for the city or for the county or both? And for that, you need the data from your keyword research and your search volumes and your actual rankings to determine what makes the most sense there. I think having frequently asked questions, having, things like local weather, all send signals to, most people the humans aren't going to care about that. So you probably want to have that content on your page, but you might suppress it with the accordion style type of content so that the search engines still see that it's there, but the humans don't get distracted by it, because these pages can actually wind up looking a little odd and clunky if you're not careful. But you want to make sure that it's highly relevant content that's on these pages and that content is unique and that content is focused on the location, the service and location, like Ian talked about, or the region, pages that Ian talked about.
Yeah, and something else you might want to consider. These pages probably not going to get a lot of traffic, but it doesn't hurt to put calls to action on there in case
Absolutely.
someone does wind up on that page.
Yeah. Oh, you always want calls to action for sure.
I've even seen it where maybe you guys have seen this too, but I've seen it where some of our clients' location pages are some of the top results for when you search for that location. Not even about the service. They're just somebody's looking for some information about that town or region, and those pop up in the on the first page of Google, which is pretty astounding sometimes when you consider they're up against some very high authority sites like city, regional, town sites, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, especially if you have local points of interest listed on that page.
Yep.
So what about copy and links? And Ken touched on this, and I think there's a lot of misinformation, some of it even coming from Google. So a couple things. Can I start with a basic copy block and replace the location name city? Some people say yes, some people say no. Or will you get better results if the copy is more targeted?
Yeah, I think, there's always misinformation and there's always a lot of buzz around SEO. And I think, as you said, even from Google, and Google doesn't share a lot, right? Although, with Mueller being available and answering questions a lot of times, he's very
he's very
transparent.
Vague.
What's that?
He's very vague.
Yeah, he comes across as transparent, but if you know what you're talking about, it's often a vague response, right? And it doesn't really give you direction. That you keep looking for the nuggets in it sometimes, and so it's sometimes I think we overanalyze that stuff, and we give that a higher priority in our minds than actually looking at the results we're achieving through best practices, right? So what we're talking about today is really proven best practices of how to rank locally, and doing unique, well-written copy for people that also includes signals to Google, which is what we always recommend for when you're writing copy of any kind, whether it's landing page copy, web page copy, blogs, anything, right? Anything that's going to be scoured by search engines and read by people, you need to be creating really good content of value. And so, because these location pages have a very specific purpose, you need to be very thoughtful about what copy you include. And I think, if I were to understand your question, Paul, it was, can you basically take the same block for all your location, copy block of text for all your locations, and simply sub out, New Jersey for New York or whatever it is? Is that kind of what you were asking?
Yeah, because there's, a lot of people do that, and I don't think Google's going to penalize you for it. I just don't know how much that really helps. I think if you have more targeted copy.
I agree 100%. And I think the latest information that we are not just hearing from Google, but anecdotally, is that those Ken briefly touched on this, that if you historically used a model like that, where you're basically taking here's a page about a town or a city, could be any town or any city, and it's got a little bit about the town or city at the top, and it's got all your services listed. That was kind of the standard. Maybe there'd be a map embed as well, but that was the way a lot of kind of templated type SEO companies used to do it. They were just burning through customers fast, and they wanted to template this out. And there was a time where that kind of stuff actually worked. That doesn't work anymore. You really do need to, create unique copy. It needs to be well written. Google's algorithms are always getting smarter, especially with what we've all observed related to AI. And so it's not just about throwing out junk because we know those pages are important. It's about creating well-crafted copy that speaks to your unique value proposition in the marketplace, your local expertise and experience, and always resonating with your target audience. Like that's the key. And yes, you need to include specific local information, like you guys talked about, attractions, things that people are often looking for in that location. Again, just sending signals, but it has to be relevant. If you can make it engaging, yes, you need calls to action. If you can interlink with other local businesses or institutions, fantastic, right? All of that stuff helps, especially if you can get other leading industry influencers to start interconnecting those as well. They can be super powerful.
Yeah, definitely. Of course, Google's email algorithm isn't getting any smarter. I can tell you that.
There's a lot that, it's like same with the reviews, right? The review, the way they sometimes discredit reviews, and then you're like, wow,
Or
those
just
were real reviews.
But yeah, it's something you mentioned, links to local points of interest. If there are things to do in that area, you should definitely link out to that. Maybe link out to their actual Google Maps page with the number of reviews that place has. Maybe there's a really, like, if you're in Austin, Texas, there's some really popular barbecue places people like to go to. Link out to that.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah,
and even interlinking on your own website, right, is so
absolutely.
important from those pages.
Yeah.
Sorry, Ken.
Yeah, no, yeah, I think even good history, just a short summary of the history of the location as well. Yeah. But again, don't just take it from Wikipedia and have it rewritten, because or someplace like that, because it may not be appropriate for your business. You still need to look at it and evaluate it. And I mean, it's like I saw a location page not too long ago where it talked about it was the headquarters of the Ku Klux Klan. Was the very first thing that it said about the location. I don't think you want to say that on a location. Not
appropriate. Yeah,
it's just not appropriate, because you're trying to rank for a service and a location. So,
yeah, put a little thought into it. How is this going to appear?
So yeah, you want it to be a gateway to prospective customers, not a barrier, right?
Right.
And so right there, if you choose to include stuff like that, you're creating a barrier for potential prospects.
Yeah.
So, Ken, what about images, videos? Should they be there? Why? Anything specific we need to know?
Yeah, I mean, I think you definitely want to have videos and images. Again, they should be relevant. If you have images, we've talked about this in past episodes, where it used to be that you could go in and you could change the metadata on an image, so that when you put that image on a web page, you could change and say, hey, this picture is, in this location in the metadata. That doesn't really come into play very much anymore. I mean, I know people still do it, but most people say that that's a waste of time anymore. I think where you're going to get traction with images is if you have images, and then you can write a little story about what the images are telling right below there, either in a caption with good location-based or keyword-based content makes sense. Videos, I think, are great too, because look, anything that you can do to increase your dwell time and get people to stay on that page, if they click and they watch a little video, that just sends signals back to Google and to the other search engines that people are finding something on that web page is useful. And so absolutely put those on there. Visual content's really important, but it needs to be relevant for sure.
Yeah, manipulating the metadata on images, it used to work, and it really didn't take Google too long to figure out that people were doing this. And then, so now they just pretty much ignore it. But if you have a picture that it's obvious that, an image, it's obvious that it is that location, that can definitely help.
Yeah. I know there are some tools out there, and again, opinions vary widely about this, but like if you can get, you know, it's almost the equivalent of like a check-in when you go deliver a service. You know, you go paint a house in a neighborhood. There is a tool where you can drop a pin and say, "Here's where I did this work." You know, and then you can pull the local pins onto the appropriate pages and maybe even some of the review content or testimonial content. You know, that's another thing that I see that there are some tools out there that do. I have yet to be convinced that that moves the needle a lot.
Yeah, I don't think it's. I think it's one of those things where maybe every little bit helps, but I think if
Yeah.
you're going to spend time doing that, you would have to be in a really competitive market for that to really help you. So, you know, what about reviews and links to category pages, which is something that's really not, we talk about internal linking, but we don't really talk about category pages and how powerful they can actually be. So, what are category pages? And what about reviews and links to them between the local pages?
Sure, I'll jump to the answers.
Sorry, but I have told this person that I have a podcast every Thursday morning. Don't call me.
If only there were a way to mute those devices.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding. Yeah, category pages are
Can
kind
you
of a
do
fun. I think so.
You don't seem to have any problem muting me.
Moving on. So category pages are basically the way I always look at them as and there's I'll share a bit of our evolution in using categories. First of all, categories are used a lot in CMSs, so content management systems like WordPress, right? Where you create blog posts, you have service pages, you might have sub-service pages, and so you can create a hierarchy of information or a categorized group of information, so it's easier to sort, filter. You know, you can even have filters on your blog posts, so people can, you know, if you have hundreds of blog posts and you want people to be able to just find a particular category of blogs, they can easily find those. Through search or through selection, filter selection. So that's actually the most way I see categories being used within the WordPress platform. What's often overlooked is that category pages are automatically created from those categories when you set them up. And most businesses who build websites do not optimize those for search. And it's not hard. It's not a lot of work. It's just an extra step that people seem to overlook, professionals overlook. And what these pages are is basically if you have a hierarchy of categories, your category page will actually show that hierarchy as links. And so that's a really powerful way to show Google how all of your information on your website is interrelated. And of course, if people get to those pages and they're set up properly, it can actually help them find information they're looking for. Again, they're not used very often. A lot of businesses forget to set up descriptions for them because they're just using them almost as an internal hierarchy that they use when setting up the pages in the background. But they can be super powerful. Any further thoughts on that? And then I'll jump to reviews.
I've actually seen category pages show up in the in search results if they're set up properly and used. And one thing I would say, you know, if some is good, more is not necessarily better. You don't want to have 50 different category pages. Okay, if you need that many categories, you need more than one website.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked on this podcast a lot in the past when it comes to SEO about building out hub pages, right? Hub pages or spoke, you know, hub and spoke model, or there's a bunch of different terms for this, but essentially these are kind of mini hub pages, right? You're sending signals that here's a whole bunch of content on this topic and subtopics, and that's a powerful thing. I was saving the best till last because I love reviews. I mean, I always have since they've come out, and as long and I think people are scared off of reviews still. I still have conversations with business owners who are scared of reviews for a couple reasons. They're scared because if I open the floodgate, we're going to get a bad review, right? Yes, that potential is always there, but do not overlook the good for the bad. Do not throw out the baby with the bathwater. Like your reviews are interlinked with your local rankings in a way that few businesses understand.
Yeah.
You have to be generating fresh reviews on an ongoing basis, and you have to be turning great customers into great online reviews. It's that simple. And if you can incorporate localized reviews on your local location pages, again, you're just creating more and more signals that Google loves to see and that make sense to people as well, right? If somebody's on a location page for a particular city and they see a review where that city is referenced, you're reducing barriers and you're creating an affinity for your business and for the content, right? So it just makes sense. Some other key things, like make sure you respond as a business to the reviews that you're getting. Be quick with your responses. If it's a positive review, respond. If it's a negative review, you still need to respond. But the one caveat I would say is don't respond in anger, and like you have to be very kind of disconnected when you're doing it, and just respond in a helpful way, because people will see your responses, and your response tells as much about your business and how you care for people that, for good or bad, may have had a negative experience of some kind. Because we're all human, we all understand people and businesses make mistakes, but how you deal with those mistakes can either win or lose prospective clients for sure.
Yeah, something you said about the bad reviews. It's look, no business is perfect, and
Yeah.
if you go and you search for something online, you find a business that has 700 5-star reviews, that would make me suspicious. It's like, okay, how much did they pay for these?
Yeah.
Because for someone to have 5, 6, 700 reviews, whatever it is, and not a single bad review, they're all 5-star, that is definitely suspicious.
Yeah, having a small mixture of, not that you should go looking for bad reviews, like don't try to seed bad reviews, but if a bad review gets in, just remember that your ranking, your review ranking, the best way to keep your overall review ranking high is to keep generating good positive reviews. And the only way you can do that, and I always tell business owners this, is that the only reason you shouldn't do reviews is if you guys suck, right? Like if you guys are horrible at your job and the lion's share of the reviews and testimonials that you're going to be getting are negative, then don't do it. Fix your business first. But if you have a good business, like most business owners out there are doing really great things for their customers and care about their experience, then reviews, like you'll just be creating more and more positive reviews, which help the negative ones sink down, and it will always keep your review ranking high.
Yeah, definitely. So unless anyone has any other thoughts, this is probably a good place to wrap up. We could go on for 2 hours on this topic, I think. But Ken, Ian, any parting thoughts?
No, I just think, like, don't overlook this, regardless of what you're kind of hearing, because again, somebody will always say something. Everybody will have an opinion, but just look at kind of historical data. Is this a best practice? It still is a best practice, and it still produces good results. So don't ignore it. Invest in the things that work.
All right. So Ken, Ian, thanks for your thoughts on this topic. I think this is a good place to wrap up. And Ian, you want to take us out?
Yeah, thanks for joining us today. If you have comments, thoughts, if you want to review us, please do. We'd love to hear that. If you have topics that you'd be interested in us covering as your marketing guides, we would love to hear from you. And of course, please share this information with other business owners that you think would find this as helpful as you do. And till next week, keep calm and market on.